establish a quorum, and let the record reflect we have 7 of the 8 board members present. Mr. Tuggle, do we have any guest speakers today?
No, sir, did not. The only guest speaker we have today is on the agenda.
On the agenda. Thank you. We'll continue, and we'll observe a moment of private meditation, please. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone, Mr. Tuggle, is signed to make public comment today?
No, sir.
Okay, let the record reflect no public comments today. Next item is the approval of the agenda for March 28, 2019. I think everybody has had an opportunity, whether you got the mail early or late, to look at the agenda. If there's no objections, can we get a motion to approve the agenda as written?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Loris and from Mr. Neal is the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. The agenda is approved. Next item is the approval of the minutes, the draft of the regular board meeting on January 28, 2019. And once again, I think everybody, whether you got the material late or early, has had an opportunity to look it over. If there's no changes or corrections or additions, we will go ahead and unanimously just approve the minutes as given to us. Do we have any objection? Without objection, so approved. The second item for the minutes is the draft of the special board meeting minutes, which had to do with the sexual harassment class. And I don't believe anybody would have any comments there. So without any objection, so approved. Now let me just go ahead and comment now that we're not going to have the sexual harassment training today because of what Mr. Tuggle and I consider technical considerations, and to give everybody an equal opportunity to hear and see the second half, because now we will all be required to take a written exam and pass it. If we don't pass it, so since we have to the end of the year, we thought we would just go ahead and postpone this for approximately a month, maybe 2. And Mr. Tuggle, do you want to add anything to that?
Just that, Kathy, would you like to tell them just how fun taking that exam was?
Well, you do have a test at the end. I took notes so that I could answer at least most of them right. And I did answer all but one right, and that's a little tricky question. You do have to pay attention before it takes some time, especially when you go back.
And it was, how long was the actual, it took you better part of an hour and what?
I'd say an hour and a half.
Okay. It's supposed to be a 1-hour training. What we're seeing is it's taking a little bit longer to get through it, take notes properly, and then actually take the exam at the end. So I think what we may want to do is discuss this and see if we want to do it at the end of another board meeting or have a special board meeting just for that at a convenient time where we're not sitting here for 2 hours taking an exam. So, and the other technical consideration is it really would be nice, since not all of us will be moving at the same speed, having individual headphones for everybody. So Kathy will secure those for us. They're just earbuds. So. Yes, ma'am.
The situation I have, not a situation, but the school board is also, we all boards have to do that. And they're going to offer us, to do the same thing, the attorney wants to do it. So I don't know when, so either way, if I get a chance to do this, or either it's still be the same one, so I'll let y'all know. I don't know if he's going to get to it before you all get to it or not. It's just like the ethics, I've already done the ethics class and all of that,
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's probably all the same thing. It's all, yeah, it's all the new mandated state testing. So.
Question, Kathy. How many questions were on the exam?
I'm not sure. It's not a lot of questions.
Okay. No
I'd
question.
say no more than 20.
Wow. Okay. Question number 2. Where are the notes?
What was the tricky question?
Okay, so it is going to take a little time if you want to pass it. And if we don't pass it, my understanding is we have to take it again.
That would be That's debatable. All state employees have to pass the exam. We are mandating that all of our supervisors have to pass the exam, but you are your own bosses technically, so if you decide you don't want to pass it, you have extra information?
I'm not sure they will allow you to print out the certificate if you do not have a passing grade.
Maybe that's what we need.
Okay. Well, I would just ask if you look into that a little further, if you don't mind, just to see. Some people don't like to take written tests.
Mr. Board President, are you worried?
No,
Okay, just checking.
not at all. We have another board member that's inquiring.
He's out of practice.
Okay, so we got that one out of the way. We have no unfinished business, so we'll go ahead and move on to item number 6, which is new business, the Capital Improvement Program report by Danell Wrightson.
That is correct, sir. And I will turn it over to Danell. Most of you have met her recently. You've all had a chance to talk with her, and she's going to fill you in on what we've all been saying. There you go.
Should we be facing this way?
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. Now, you have all the sheets in your booklet as well. And I'm basically going to start by giving you a real quick summary of the process we've gone through to date. Visited each full-time library and had tours and took pictures and input from the staff. Gathered collection, circulation, and usage mapping. So library staff gave me information about the size of the collections, and we did a snapshot circulation. So on one day, how many of different kinds of items were out at each of the facilities. And then I had them do a usage mapping where each library, 3 times a day for 15 days, mark where people were. Was there one person sitting at this table? Were there 4? How many were at the computers in the technology lab versus out in the open? How many people were in the meeting rooms? Those kind of things to give an idea of use. And then I met or talked to almost all of you with some questions about kind of the library system and the vision for where we're going, in the next 10, 20 years as well. And then I worked on a concept draft of potential work and budget, worked back and forth with John and Jim Pelton talking about different things, came in again, looked at the sites and the potential directions that we could expand the buildings, which sites had more opportunities than others, and kind of just worked through. So since then I've been fine-tuning that and expanding it, and that's what I'm giving you today. It's a draft, it's a work in progress. Really wanting to get your input on, are we looking at each facility in the right way and what we're looking at doing, and understanding that we're trying to balance the staying under 10 million and balancing it and trying to touch all facilities. And then talk a little bit about the part-time branches and what we're looking at doing for those. And then the phasing. We're trying to look at 2 phases. So in your book is this spreadsheet, but I also have one loose copy so that you could be looking at the individual facilities and still have a printout of kind of the overall. And on this sheet, what I did was, it's kind of a summary of the dollars. It's the first draft at going first phase or second phase. It gives us some background information on each facility, but also things like door count, the current hours, how big each collection is, and then what that snapshot percentage is. Because like in any library system, all the libraries aren't the same. And they shouldn't be the same. I think what's one of the strong suits of your library system for the last 20, 25 years is that they try to represent the community they serve. You didn't approach it 20 years ago that one size fits all, and we're not thinking we should do that again. We should really look at each one individually. So the other thing I spent some time is looking at your facilities map. So looking at the parish or service area, and these show the kind of brownish orange are 3-mile radiuses of the part-time libraries, kind of show the area that they cover. The green are the full-time libraries at a 3-mile radius, which is a pretty small radius. And then the regional library is shown at a 5-mile radius. Now, the rule of thumb in today's libraries and travel times really have longer or larger radiuses because we seem to travel faster. So the next one is the proposed facility map. And what I'm proposing is that we have 5 regional libraries, not necessarily resource libraries, but regional libraries. They're a little larger, they open longer hours so that you could get to one on hours where another library maybe is not open. And so the ones I'm suggesting are some of them are currently Broadmoor and Hamilton, North Shreveport, and we looked at both North Shreveport and North Caddo, but because of retail and other destinations more directed towards North Shreveport than North Caddo, and also looking at the current usage of the North Caddo library, it made more sense, and the land that's available, to look at maybe North Shreveport as a regional library. And then the other two were the West Shreveport to pick up towards the Texas line, and then Cedar Grove to help pick up that faster growing area up to the south. So those were my recommendations for regional. Again, the big difference is have slightly longer hours. And for the most part, they're slightly larger buildings. North Shreveport's probably the one that's not quite there.
And Danelle, if I could just add, one of the ways we're looking at getting those more hours at those regionals would be Sunday hours. So since I know Dottie Bell has asked many times in this room and other rooms that we have more Sunday hours throughout the system, the concept of the regional is to add those Sunday hours at each one of those.
And almost any library in the country that has Sunday hours, that's their busiest time of the whole week. It's hard for library staff to have to work on Sundays, but it is the time where families have time to come to the library. Students are coming in to do their homework, for the weekend. So Sunday hours, usually, 12 to 5 or 1 to 6 in that range is typically what we see. Yes. The green are the full-time branches. The blue are the regionals with a bigger radius. So does anyone see any discussion on what we're suggesting as far as the regionals?
We were somewhat impressed by dropping Cedar Grove in there. We had that little gap in between toward the south and toward the center that we didn't have multiple branches covered through the regionals, and Cedar Grove was the perfect solution to that. Not only does it have lots of space as far as property to add on to, it also is one of the easier branches to actually go in and add square footage to. So that helps us keep our costs down, and we don't have to expand as far as trying to get additional property. So it has multiple pluses as far as the reason we selected.
And we'll go into each building individually, talking about the expansion that we're proposing and a diagram showing what part of the building we would expand. I think Dolores had one.
I just don't have a question.
Oh.
I just like it.
Okay, well that's good.
I guess I confused myself here. The resource libraries, Which ones are going to be, I missed something there.
We're not calling them resource
They're gonna
libraries
be just
anymore.
called regional.
They're gonna be called regional.
Regional.
Because that's really, I think, a better term.
I agree.
Every library is a resource.
Yes.
Okay, you said that North Caddo would not be a resource branch.
Right, it's just gonna be a branch.
Okay, because it's sort of, you know, there's a lot to serve out there in terms of, you know, mileage.
Well, it'll still have, yeah, it will still have everything it has, even more so when we talk about that one.
Okay, would
But
that
that-
be one that would have the Sunday hours?
No, right now, no.
Okay.
Now, you could try it there. If you look at the summary sheet on here and look at North Caddo, you know, their door count is very low.
I'm just concerned that, you know, on Sundays, that's a large area and a lot of, you know, people and kids and families, so for them to have some Sunday hours might be something for us to consider.
We have thought about it. It was one of the original ones, and as you debate this over the next couple of months, if that's the way the board likes to go, we wouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah, the thinking again was that, that when you're looking at sites for libraries, destinations and places close to other places that you're going to. So say you're going to the grocery store, or you're going to the hardware store, or, you know, these other different errands that you're running. Most of them are going to head towards Shreveport, probably, for a lot of those services.
Good question.
Looking at the Broadmoor Regional, with the regional libraries, what is the primary factor in their being in that category?
Why Broadmoor is in a regional?
Yeah.
Because of its size
Because
and
of
the
it.
things it can offer and the use of that building.
Okay. Well, down in the area, community-sized libraries, there are some of the same needs in these libraries, but I'm looking at the distance within the city, as far as the city is concerned. It seems like there would be one of those regional libraries in this area, where you have Atkins, David Rain, Hollywood, Wallet, all of those
All
are
of
kind of
those-
in the central,
Right.
in the
They
same
all-
location, and they don't have one of those libraries in that area.
Well, actually, all west, like Atkins overlaps with West Shreveport, Cedar Grove, and Broadmoor. All of that travel distance overlaps, so you could go to any of those three.
And let me just say that
Also there.
ours are not necessarily tied to a building program.
You can change the
We can
hours.
do hours any way you want to. The cost with hours becomes a personnel issue and an annual personnel line item as opposed to this. I mean, as far as the current hours and what we call a regional at this time, the regional is just based on an hours thing, and that doesn't really impact the construction as far as that
Okay.
goes. Yeah.
That's very good, Mr. President. That's very good. But you don't see what I'm saying. If you look at the overall users, I'm sure you have, of these libraries, Atkins, David Rains, and one big total community all by itself, it's pretty close to North Shreveport. It's easy to get, easier now since the interstate's there to get up and go to North Shreveport. But Atkins, David Rains, Wallet, they don't have that easy access that it looks like on paper to these regional libraries. And you have people, the users are not going to be those who, unless you have people like college students doing research, and that's not going to be a lot in that area compared to the others. But what I'm saying is, it seems just like to me that one of those regional libraries should be near some of these that are categorized as community-sized libraries?
Well, I think some
You
of it has
still
to
gonna
do with
do-
the actual square footage that's available. But as John said, I mean, you could take any of these libraries, and the only difference in services is there's two differences: square footage and potential hours. If you can easily change the hours. The square footages are harder to do because some of the buildings
I know the
are
space, the
designed.
land you have.
Yes, yes. So if we look at the hour, like John said, take the hours separate, and they don't, you know, you could call any library a regional library. The difference is people travel usually farther distances. So I think what you're really asking for is not that it be called a regional, because we're not having them travel farther distance, but just have the hours so it's accessible on Sunday to people in those communities.
No, I'm asking for the hours and the resources. If you have more
Well-
resources in these others
So,
here,
Well,
for those same resources to be included in these
well,
Atkins, whatever.
we're not suggesting
More time.
all of the facilities, and we'll get into each one individually, and I think
Okay.
that's probably where we really want to go, because I don't think they all want to have the same resources because they're not being used in the same way. So we want to give the resources.
Well, access to without traveling so far in town.
Right,
Access
right.
to those resources
To
needed.
what resources are needed and being
Mhm.
used, yes, I agree.
Because it looks to me as if they are just still isolated.
Well, and again, we had debated whether or not to add Wallet into this, but when you take a look at, and this map is a lot better when you blow it up so you can actually look at the actual populations that are actually hitting inside the regionals. But again, Deontay's not here to back me up when I sit here and make the statement that I have threatened to open all of them up on Sundays. But the problem again with all of that is how do we pay for that when it comes to the personnel cost? This is, right now what we're discussing is what we can do with square footage and inside the buildings. And the problem, and let me address one other thing, the problem with calling them resource centers, when we used to call the branches resource centers, that was back in the day before the internet became everywhere and everything, and most of all of our resources are on the internet. So right here with my smartphone in my pocket, I can access almost everything that's available at the resource center. The only things that make technically Broadmoor and the downtown libraries unique is that Broadmoor now has a genealogy library, which we can't reproduce that collection everywhere, because that is a unique collection. And some of the collections that are downtown, as far as like the Louisiana collection, that is the one collection that is unique that we can't reproduce everywhere else. Other than that, all the resources that are available at Broadmoor and Hamilton and downtown right now are also available at Ida and Gillum and Moortown. Yeah. So that's why we're moving away from that use of that phrase resource, because all the resources are available now. So really all regional is size and hours.
Right. And we can come back to this after we've gone through each building. That might be more helpful.
Before, I'm just talking about this.
I got something.
Yeah.
Okay, I see where she's coming from, but I'm in another angle part of it. I'm not talking about resources and that's, I'm talking about the library being open to resources to the people.
Right.
I understand, most people, Atkins, David Range, Hollywood, Moortown, they travel by bus. They travel by bus to get to the library. And I feel the same way that one of these libraries should be open to assess those people. Martin Luther King, Cedar Grove, they need to come, because that's where they travel to go to those. And I feel there's not a library there in that area. I don't know if you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about in that area. There's not a regional library. You know, I would have said something about that West Shreveport wasn't open. But now I know that my part-time people from Hickory and Brighton, they come from Greenwood to come to West Shreveport, because that's close to them. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they be saying Morningsville a long ways from Greenwood. But I still feel the same thing, that one of these, one of them need to be open for that access in the inner city. That's what I'm talking about. We need a library open in the inner city, because you have Booker T. Washington High School, you got all those schools where kids need to do right now. Some of them working on projects right now, senior projects. And I'm so glad the library opened on spring break. Because you go by the library with West Street with so many cars in there, those kids are doing projects. So what I'm saying, the same thing on Sunday, that we need, and that's where I'm coming
That's
from.
good.
We need a library in that area, because those babies be traveled by bus and,
Well, what we probably should do is take the hours out of this discussion, because
I don't even hear about hours. I'm like, no hours, no.
because this really is not what I was focusing on.
Okay, baby.
I mean, this is facilities, and it's taking the capital dollars and investing them in the buildings. Ours are operating dollars.
Yeah, you can
And
beat
this is
me
not
up there.
really looking at operating dollars. So we definitely agree with everything you're saying. It's just probably a separate conversation. And whether it's called a region, the reason I called these regionals had to do with square footage that allowed them maybe to offer larger programs and things like that. So physical space, not necessarily hours, but not that, I mean, I understand exactly where all of you are coming from. And if my recommendation would be to have all of them open on Sunday, but that's an operating dollars. And I would suggest, even if that meant opening some of them later in the day, certain days of the week, to try to get those to balance. There's ways to do it, but personally, I think Sunday afternoons are one of the most important for all.
I'm going to suggest when you say that about I remember days that when we wanted jobs, if I wanted to work, a job, I would work that weekend, because they would do like that. The regular job, somebody would maybe want to be off on a Monday, and they come to work on a Sunday. You see, I'm just saying that. So that they're off day be a Monday, and they may work on a Saturday. Think about that too.
Oh,
I'm just thinking about, that's what I'm saying.
There are lots of staffing models. I have Beyonce.
Yeah, okay. But that's all I want to just make sure. That's what I was coming from.
I guess that'll be a budget item.
It is.
Yes.
George, did you have something else?
Yeah, I did. It's conjunction with what Johnny is saying. And as I sat here and listened to Shannon first, she brought it up, and Josephine and Dottie, then I remembered that I used to work as an administrator up at North Ave. And and I heard you say, Janelle, that you said that the Sunday hours, the hours are not well utilized at North Caddo as they are at some other libraries.
No, the door count's not as high.
Okay.
Overall, just the overall door
Yeah.
count.
And I really expect, I personally expect from what I experienced up there, that the door count would be greater on Sundays. Because up there at North Caddo, a lot of kids are involved in after-school programs. That's what they do. There's not much else to do up there. So a lot of them are involved in stuff. So, and they do not need to have to travel to town to go to the library on Sunday. And I'm not recommending that it be a regional library as such, but
Sunday hours.
yeah, and even if it's a pilot program to see if it works, if they really would utilize those hours. And then if they're not utilizing them as well, the door count is not as great during the week, then perhaps, you can look at, different strategies in scheduling the hours. And the same thing is true for,
Yeah, I think that might be a good model for any of us, do a pilot and try and see, because your libraries all use differently. And so there's not like one right answer for all 12 full-time libraries. So
Yes.
I think
but
you're
I
on.
agree with them that there needs to be something up there between Wallet and Martin MLK, that area somewhere up there. There does need to be something open on Sunday on that end of town as well.
Okay, but before I call on Neil, I'm going to ask that everybody try to limit their discussion to facilities. I think the board unanimously agrees that we need to consider
Look at hours.
hours for North Caddo and for probably as many branches as we possibly can. That goes without saying. I think that'll be a budget issue. But I know you came here to talk more about the facilities and the expenditures and so forth, so we'll try and limit our discussion to that. But we have one more question for Mr. Neal.
I also want to throw my 2 cents away on Sunday hours for North County. Because if you look at the map from North Shreveport to Arkansas, there's nothing open on Sunday.
Right.
It's a long way for a teenager, anybody, to go from Odessa or Ida or someplace like in Belcher, if you don't have North Shreveport, you don't like it.
Yes.
I like it.
One more.
I just wanted to I have a question to kind of move us into the facilities discussion. It's okay to move to action?
Yes.
Okay. And I noticed this in a bunch of the other branches, and this is just a question because I know, I'm on page 7. I'm on the first page of admins.
Which is what I just put up on the screen too.
Okay. So, and I'm a librarian too, so I completely understand about weeding, and I love that word. And I see that the checkout stats are really not great for printed materials.
For Atkins, J.
So when you, does your plan, when the collection is weeded, is that space going to be used for like a different purpose, or is it going to, are we going to increase the, okay, so.
For people.
Okay, so we don't increase the AV part.
Well, it could.
Okay. I mean, it's fine because I know we've got a lot of online resources for, for AV, but I was, that was
Yes,
the question.
and AV is one of your highest circulating.
Right.
But overall, the system circulation is low, some of them much lower than others. You know, the goal is typically trying to get close to 15%.
Yeah.
Some of yours are less than 2%.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the libraries aren't being used, and Atkins is an example of it. The door count is close to 60,000 a year. That's 7th. So it's dead in the middle of the full-time libraries, but its circulation is 10th. So what my recommendation is we can be using some of that square footage for people, because there's people in the library. And that's part of the reason on the first page, there's 4 to 5 sheets on every facility. And the first page is a summary, and I try to include, the current size, the door count, the rank, how many visitors per square foot, because of course, if you have a lot more square footage, you have more room for people. And then did a similar thing for the collection size, the snapshot, the staffing, and the current hours. These are not recommended. This is all just based on current information. And then this first page has a summary of recommendations that then is shown in the budget. So on Atkins, there's some maintenance to be done. Remove all the existing vinyl wall covering. On this one, I suggest that it should be expanded so that it would add about 600 square feet. So not only would we weed the collection and have more floor space due to less shelving, we'd also add 600 square feet to the building. And that would be used to enlarge the meeting room, so larger meetings could happen there, as well as expanded children's tween-teen area for the younger people. I talk about reducing the collection. AV is doing well, but everything else is pretty low. To take some of that space and create some study rooms so that tutoring can happen, small group projects. As Dottie was saying, that students are working on projects now. If they had that room that they could go in and kind of spread out and use it, and not disturb everyone else in the library, that would be helpful as well. The dedicated tween-teen area with seating and computers, children's with early literacy with seating and interactives. There's a little bit of industrial shelving that's needed and a wall-mounted projection screen. Yes?
So overall, when we see that the collection is being weeded, that space is going to be used for more people space,
yes.
Correct?
In this case, it was to create the 2 study rooms. The other thing, if we go to the cost estimate, there's a lot more detail in there. When all of these 12 were done, buildings were done, the study tables are big. And looking at how they're being used, often one person sits down and spreads out, and they're taking 100 square feet for one person. So even though those tables are beautiful and they're still, most of them are in good shape, they're just taking up way too much square footage. And your libraries, again, Plano, Texas is running the same thing. I'm working with them right now, and their buildings, the Haggard, which the furniture package is out for bids right now, was done in, well, it started construction in '88, so 30 years ago, 31 years ago. And we're putting in smaller tables for one. We're putting in personal tables so that they can fit more people. It's all about people. And so that's what a lot of this is. And then furniture for the study room. So all these cost estimates have construction, the 600 square feet for Atkins, then meeting room tables and chairs for that expansion, as well as construction of the study rooms in that. Each of them have in right now architects and engineering fees, as well as a contingency to come up with that number. What I haven't done is, because I want to kind of see where the projects settle on whether they're phase 1 or 2, we want to put them into 2 phases and really look to you on where you think which one should be in phase 1 versus 2. And then phase 2 will probably also want to put an inflation factor depending on when that phase 2 is, which is not in there now. So are there any, we can go through all of them and then come back, or we can talk about each one individually. I'm not sure which would be, do you think would be most beneficial?
What's the pleasure of the board?
Is there a way to cover generally things that are germane to each branch?
Right, I can do it pretty
As you go
quickly and then
through,
we can
yeah.
start and then go back.
Yes.
We just received this right now.
Yes, and you get to keep it.
Okay, let
You
me
get
ask you
to-
something. And I'm trying to look at everyone, but number one, I have another question after this though. I'd like to go home and look at these.
You get 2 months, Dottie, before we start even tearing it apart. So it'll be the next board meeting before we really sign off and say this, so.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
give you an update.
This is just
and
the very
an
first
overview.
draft.
Okay, this right, so we'll get a chance to take these home and
Yeah.
Yes,
but we
yes.
we can't sign off next time, I'm coming back to tell you, ask you some questions.
Well,
Right, and then we'll
That's what
modify.
they're trying to deal with it, okay? Okay, now I'm gonna have some questions. And furthermore, why Hiccup Bottom owns by All City, right? I mean, not All City, where back in All City from? Greenwood, so that's where you don't have nothing about Hiccup Bottom? Because they own,
Well, we're going to do like we did last time and give them a stipend for building, but we actually can't do any of the construction and architecture. All we're going to do is help pay for it.
okay, then, can I ask you that, when they have their next council meeting, me and you need to go up there, after we finish this, can we go meet with them?
Just let Kathy know.
Okay, yeah, me and you go up there, cause see, I'm looking at every update here, I mean, they might have 2 or 3 people there, but they still didn't use it already.
There you go.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just like to, me and you talk about that, and then we're gonna meet with them sometime before summer. Back to what I'm saying, because I'm gonna look at all this.
No,
And
no,
I'm
I
trying to see-
understand, there is a
So
lot
I'm
to
saying,
take in.
I can't decide off on the next go meeting.
No, no,
Because
no.
I need to, like, you had to, wait, we just on Atkins. You gotta get over here to, West Shreveport, that's done. We'll be here all night.
Yes.
So we need to look at.
The purpose of it is for me to I'm trying to explain the information so that when you look on it, you know what it's trying to represent and
You're doing well.
what it's
We
based
got
on.
you. You're doing good.
Okay.
I didn't want to know that.
And Danelle, you are doing great, let me ask you. And just generally speaking, and I'm asking this because I'm doing this in my own school library, so is anything for the children's sections or any of them, are any of these things able to accommodate being on wheels or being able to move, easily moved around?
All of the furniture will be very flexible
Okay,
and
okay.
modular.
Okay,
Like this study room, yes.
okay,
And we're not anywhere close to moving into the phase where we're actually selecting it.
Okay.
But those budgets are based on most of the tables and chairs, the smaller tables, you don't even really need casters because they're smaller and lighter weight. The ones you have now are like tanks. They're wonderful, but they're not very mobile or flexible. Yeah, and I even tried putting in things like little personal tables that instead of a chair with a laptop tablet, which break and hit walls. They're little tables that you can move anywhere.
And will they have any of the tables, or like I see you have reading chairs in most of the updates, will they have like any capability to charge things or?
Because they're existing buildings, granted if we're putting in study rooms, we'd obviously have power in those walls where you can charge and every duplex outlet that gets put in the library these days also has just USB ports in them, so you don't even need the adapter. But there's also for parts of the library where you don't have power in the floor and you're not close to a wall or a column. Their Vern makes these small things, they're about this big, they're called hitch, they're about this tall. They charge, so the staff could charge them in the workroom, and then you could check it out with a library card and stick it down anywhere in the library.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm working with the Tucker Foundation in Texas on small rural libraries, and none of them have adequate power. And they're like $200 a piece, so they're not very expensive. And they just get charged in the back, and anyone can use it anywhere in the library.
Oh, okay, great.
It's the best solution I've found so far. Where the other chargers, you have to plug in somewhere.
Yeah.
So you still need power, so they don't really solve that issue.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Let's do this, it's okay. It's all right with the other board members. Go ahead and hit the high points of what we should know. Give us all the time, like Donna suggested, to go absorb some of this, see if we have any specific questions.
Okay.
And even today, after you're finished, we'll entertain some questions.
Okay, very good. So if you look at the page after the cost estimate in Atkins, and on my PowerPoint I have the page numbers, it's a diagram showing the area that we would be adding that 600 square feet. At most of your buildings, the architects did not think to the future and planned for an easy way to expand. Many of them, especially a lot of your meeting rooms, are strange shapes. So this one, and the size of each of the expansions was not an easy thing because we'd all ideally like to have $20 million to have a bigger impact.
Would have been nice.
But the goal was to try to give each facility what met their highest priorities and to affect every library in some way. So when you're looking at these and thinking about sizes and that, also think about phases. The second phase potentially could have more flexibility if more revenue comes in. Or if the first phase goes way over budget, it could have less. So the phasing, is, in my opinion, you want to do the ones you think have the most pressing needs right now to start, doing that way. And when we get to downtown, as we've talked in the past, is probably the hardest facility to decide. And I made my recommendations I think are going to be somewhat controversial, but I did them trying to give as much emphasis to the rest of the facilities as possible. So I'm going to, like we said, I'm going to walk through here and try to explain, and we can ask questions so that when you go to spend time looking at it, because it's a lot to absorb, that you have time. And you guys can send additional questions as you go, once you're looking at it after today too. So that's Atkins. Broadmoor is, collection is used the most, its door count's the highest. It does need some ceiling tiles replaced, and the vinyl wall covering. This library, because of its use and its location, I'm recommending that we not add a meeting room, but enlarge the meeting room so that you have one place in the system where you can hold one larger groups. And it wouldn't have to be Broadmoor, but it just seems like Broadmoor is already has such heavy use, it makes some sense that maybe, and we can do it there, that it makes sense. So it adds 900 square feet, but it's all to add to a meeting room. Again, as I do libraries around the country, one large multi-purpose room, even in smaller communities, is a high priority. I mean, Bethany, Oklahoma is doing a meeting room for 300. Bulverde, Texas, north of San Antonio, they're doing a meeting room for 300. There's not that kind of place available in most communities. So that was the thinking behind it. It also adds 2 additional study rooms that we're creating by moving some things around. Genealogy is important, but it's being underused. It has so much square footage, so we're not talking about getting rid of any of the collection, but making some of the tables smaller, have not quite so much seating in there, and taking some of that area to do 2 study rooms. So again, keeping genealogy there, but capturing some of that, and creating a smaller multi-purpose room that the genealogists could use for classes, but also the travel makerspace. Bulverde is another good example. They have a grant to do a makerspace media lab, but they're doing it such that it's modules, and they have a trucker that they can move it to other libraries, not their own district, and they only have one library, but other libraries in the area as sharing their. So they'll have a module that's sewing, and so in this month they move sewing over to this other library. Next month it's woodworking, the next month it's laser printing or digital printing, or, so they made these kits. So one of the things I'm trying to do on most of these facilities is get you a multi-purpose room that kind of class could go on. Or someone in the community could come in and do a session on bike repair or quilting, or it's a way to, again, connect with the talents and skills and interests in that particular community and collaborate with them by having that small multi-purpose space. The adult reference class collection would be reduced or completely taken out. Most libraries are doing that, and you have downtown as a resource service. So again, a dedicated tween-teen area would be created, and the children's area, not enlarged, but by changing out tables and and changing the shelving to create more of an enclosed early literacy for play and development. Part of the reason its number is higher is a bigger building, so the square footage happens. The other thing we are doing in Broadmoor is removing that stage out of the meeting room to make it, again, more flexible and multi-purpose, that the stage takes up a lot of square footage. So that's Broadmoor. And you can see we're doing the corner where the meeting room is, again, just expanding that meeting room. Cedar Grove, Line Avenue, its collection is actually used 3rd in the system, right between Hamilton and Broadmoor, so the collection is used there. Their door count is dead in the middle at 6. It does need to have, again, its vinyl wall covering removed. This one, we have the land there and can do it, so we're suggesting adding 1,600 square feet to that facility, partially because of the use. It uses almost 70,000 people. It would add a multi-purpose room and 2 small group study rooms and enlarge the children's area, the floor space in the children's. The nonfiction would be weeded, but Most of the other collection would stay the same. Again, changing out larger tables, rearranging computers, taking out the one help desk that isn't stacked to get additional square footage. And so the cost estimate for that one is, most of it is that addition, that large addition that we're adding on Cedar Grove. And if you look at the plan, this one has the space, and it's easy to just go out in the back to get our 1,600 square feet. David Rains is one of the, it has the lower door count, and but its circulation's better than some of them. Circulation's at 9. It does need some maintenance in that we want to change all the lighting to LED so it has better lighting, remove the vinyl wall covering. It is also a very, very hard building to expand. The way the roofs all come down low. The best could find to do is the one area in the picture on the lower left of that front page, under that canopy, creating 2 study rooms by enclosing that part. It's the part of the building that has the biggest overhang. So we would be able to get them 2 additional study rooms without taking any of the existing space within the building.
Now, Janelle, when you talk about collection, you're talking about just the printed physical?
Printed physical.
Okay.
And most libraries, again, I go to Plano, Texas, they're taking out shelving and their circulation is really, really high, but that doesn't mean all of the nonfiction is being used. Lafayette, Louisiana, we cut their nonfiction in children and adult. We took it down by 35% on both of those, and the circulation went up 4 times. So less is often more, because you're not having to look through stuff that is outdated and no longer of interest. Nonfiction, with everything, as John said, so much information in the palm of your hands, it's just a different world. And so just accepting that. So David Rains' budget looks less because we're not able to do that kind of physical expansion. That expansion is going to be less expensive because we already have a roof and we have columns. We're just probably reinforcing the foundation and enclosing it. But it does get them those 2 study rooms, and then it gives us more space. We're taking out a lot of the large tables and putting in smaller tables, creating a really dedicated children's area as well. And then you can see on their diagram, it's in that corner under the canopy for the roof structure. Downtown branch. Downtown, I've looked at so many different scenarios. We have 80,000 square feet. The door count is fairly high because of all the square footage. It's 4th. But its circulation is dead last. But it's got lots and lots of collection. So what I am recommending is that we do the maintenance, replace the roof, replace the carpeting on the 1st and 2nd floor, replace the ceiling and lighting on the 1st and 2nd floor, and redo all the restrooms. And the windows would be replaced in phase 2. So the 3rd floor would become closed stack. So nonfiction that isn't popular nonfiction, the reference collection, probably potentially the Louisiana collection would be closed stacks, and staff would retrieve them from the 3rd floor and bring them to the 1st or 2nd floor. So the 1st and 2nd floor would turn into a branch library with a living room where people can come in and read newspapers, there's computers, a multi-purpose area on the 1st floor where makerspace could come in and do things. But it would serve as branch library.
So go to the fourth floor.
The fourth floor, my suggestion would be to either look for nonprofits or others to lease it, or to basically just clear it out and use it as a changing kind of space. Many urban libraries are taking that, and that's where you could have a large gathering. You could have a maker festival of different stations, but that it basically be an unfinished. And until the parking is solved, I don't see investing additional money in finishing out floors when people aren't going to come.
I will share that I've been in some conversations with the Shreveport Regional Arts Council about repurposing parts of the third and fourth floor. We also currently have 2 partnerships, one with BIPSI that we will have to maintain, and it looks like we would probably want to give them part of that fourth floor. But that would be just continuing what we're doing with them at this point, just being good neighbors and letting them have the space. And with the North Louisiana Civil Rights Commission, we're still working with them. They're in flux right now. They're not quite sure what they're wanting to do. We had originally offered them lots of space for displays and stuff of that nature. They still have office space with us, but at this time it doesn't seem to me that they are putting forth the effort to want to actually do any displays with us, and they are trying to put their money into the church that they want to restore. So at this point, they're kind of in flux, but we still reserve that third and the fourth floor. We can continue on with those partnerships. I especially want to continue on with BIPSI and the HISET/GED partnership. We want to keep that going, and they certainly do not want to lose that space. And I have to tell you, Shreveport Regional Arts Council's eyes, Samantha can tell you, sparkled quite a bit when we started talking about what we could do as far as things on that third floor and fourth floor with them. So even partnerships with, I mean, we haven't gotten away from the idea of a downtown makerspace at this point. We've just gotten away from the idea of us having to pay for it. So there's still lots of flexibility right there.
Hearing what Danelle said about the closed stacks and staff going to retrieve those documents kind of raised another question. Is there any room or any thought about putting additional elevators into downtown?
No.
It would be very expensive to add additional elevators.
Okay.
Like many hundreds of thousands of dollars to
Okay,
add an
elevator.
My feel is there'll be very little retrieving.
Okay.
The collection now is getting used very little, and the collection we're talking about moving is reference materials and non-popular nonfiction. So
I'm just thinking about the staff member that's like.
no, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yes, having worked in the 6th floor building and having to retrieve items from the 6th and the basement, I understand your concerns there, but.
Again, a lot of those resources that we're talking about putting in closed stacks will be seldom used, and a lot of them, especially like the government documents, most of that's available online now. So.
Lafayette, their downtown library, when they were getting ready, about a year before they were going to close and renovate it, they moved the whole reference collection up to the 4th floor, their closed floor. In that year, they did not get one request for a single piece of material when they moved up there. So that's why I understand your concern. But you could also treat it like a floating collection. If there were things they saw that people were asking for, you move those down.
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Did you say you might do the Louisiana collection up there?
That I have right now, I have it on this, I do have it in the closed stack. I'm not sure how, I don't have the information exactly how big it is. We could probably put it on the second floor
I
as
mean, I
well.
just wondered about preservation. Some of the material is
Well, the third floor is still in,
It's still,
Yeah.
it would be controlled, actually, it'd be easier to
Yeah.
control it. You could keep it at a lower temperature if you wanted. And that's usually they try to keep them in that 60 to 65 degree and lower humidity.
plus we would want to eventually incorporate the Shreveport Times collection that we have. We'd like to bring it up
Yeah,
to the third floor.
that floor could become more the special archives, and time could be looked at, referencing some of those other materials to see whether they're worth saving or. So any other questions on downtown? So basically, the first floor is going to be the more active floor with the living room and new books and AV and newspapers and children's and teens, and the second floor would have study rooms and the adult collection, the rest of the adult collection and seating and that. So then you'd only be staffing 2 floors as well. So staffing would, it would help maybe open some other libraries on Sundays. Because there is a need for the downtown to have a facility, but the parking makes it just a real challenge. And it does have that multi-purpose space still on that first floor as well.
It'd be nice if we could have like soda machines and things in place where people could bring their lunch and eat.
Well, you could do
Yeah,
that.
it's still not out of the question. We're just looking, Shreveport, again, TRAC is very interested in helping us out, and there are grants for that, again, but we're trying to, we've got such a small pot of money that right now, dedicating another $200,000 to a makerspace downtown with no parking just doesn't seem feasible.
Yeah, if you're going to invest like that, you want it to be used. There's other locations that it would get used a lot more.
I did the same with open on Saturday and Sunday, we got a party.
Do what?
Just have it open on Saturday and Sunday. You know, and all that parking, and street.
The next one is Hamilton South Caddo. It's second in door count and second in circulation. It's heavily used. We do need to replace the carpet at that facility as far as maintenance. We were looking at adding 800 square feet to Hamilton South Caddo for a multi-purpose room and 2 additional study rooms. Again, we've reduced collection, especially in the nonfiction, the large tables, more early literacy. We would remove the stage in their meeting room, existing meeting room, to make it more flexible, and a more flexible help desk.
The drawing has 1,000 square feet.
Yes, well, they've been going back and forth, and I should have corrected that. It's not. It is, it's 800 square feet.
Mr. Pelton is adamant we do not go over $10 million, so they
Yes.
lost 200 square feet right there.
So the dollars are right, the drawing is wrong. Yeah. Hollywood, Union Avenue, its door count is 3rd, its circulation is 5th.
I got some photos from the puppet show the other day, you should see.
Yeah, it's almost 100,000. So it is heavily used. Maintenance is, again, remove that vinyl wall covering and repainting. There's some plumbing, venting issues and HVAC balance and humidity control control that needs to happen, as well as some window shades on the east side, but some of the east is covered, but not all of it. Suggesting 800 square feet to do a large multi-purpose room. And in this one, I'm also recommending a covered outdoor or outdoor programming space. Again, most of the rest is reduced collections and smaller tables. Also, because of their layout and where access to their workroom, I'm suggesting adding a automatic door opener, so as you're coming with carts and books and moving there, that door would automatically open. Most of the other, or many of the others, are workrooms right behind the desk, and there isn't even any door. But so trying to make it a little easier for them to maneuver there. So the drawing shows that multi-purpose room, which it would be adjacent to the children's area, but could have a door from the main area. And then that using that triangle space to create outdoor courtyard. So programming and outdoor things, but even sitting, people could sit out there on a beautiful day like today. A couple of the facilities, it was such that we could create this covered outdoor courtyard. And that's another trend we're seeing, is people are trying to make as much use of the outdoor space, because it's a lot cheaper than indoor space. And so when there were opportunities, trying to seize on those. Yes?
Yes.
The meeting room, you talk about the multi-purpose room and the meeting room, talk about the same thing? Because that meeting room.
There is a meeting room. The meeting room is
very small.
Yes, this new one's bigger.
Okay, so you think about adding another?
It's another new one.
There you go, okay.
Yes, an 800 square
so
foot.
small.
Yes, the existing one, and because of the doors and everything in it,
Just
yes.
small.
So in reality, the problem with the new one is it won't be able to be after hours because it won't have separate access to the restrooms like the existing one. But the room is going to be, well, it's larger than the existing one. The new one will be larger. It's 800 square feet. So it's, and it's a nice simple square, which makes it a lot of your meeting rooms are very strange shapes, which are challenging to fit people in chairs and rows. Moortown. Yeah, it's currently 8,500 square feet. We're recommending adding 800 square feet there. And this would be a new multi-purpose room, which would hold around 80. Now, code will say we could fit about 110 in there. So standing or reception in that, getting that many people sitting in chairs would be a little tight. The code uses 7 square feet per person. So in 800 square feet, you can fit over 100.
I'm trying to orient myself on this map. Moortown, I know they've got that back part with the great view of the, it's not a golf course, but
The park.
the park. We don't lose that, do we?
No, you still have the whole curve looking out to the park.
Okay.
It's the part, we're adding that multi-purpose room on that bar. Again, because of the shape, you can't go out on any of that curved side. But I did also include a cover and adding breaking up that concrete a little on that courtyard so that off of Children's could be used as an outdoor program space. Right now, it's just all concrete and no cover. It's not very usable. But if we turn it into a nicer space, that gives you another, that's probably 400 square feet. So that's another additional square footage. Because there's no other way, unfortunately, to expand that building. If we could find additional money, you could make it a little the addition even a little larger, but that gives you a meeting room that actually seats more, again, than the existing one. So whether you turn the other one into the multipurpose and call this one the meeting room, you could do that on any of these.
And you know,
Yes.
I just want to interject this. She mentioned that, you know, if more money is found, we could make that a little bit.
Right. That's true of any of these.
And another thing says that, you know, for construction of the meeting rooms and study rooms and so forth, the libraries, you look at the long run or the future, and I think that we do need to, John and the board, feel very important to look at the possibility of making this, I'm just using this one as an example, but perhaps some of the others too, a little larger than 800 square feet, looking down the road at the foreseeable future, where we might need bigger rooms, or we might need to utilize part of that room to make something else.
If we could find another million or 2 million, most of these that are adding, 800 should be probably 1,200. Just to give you, most of these will not be, there's not another addition you could do in the future. And having that larger meeting space, which you could, some of these, not this one, you couldn't, some of them you could even add a wall and turn it into 2 types of spaces. But most libraries, again, that I'm working on around the country, and it's true on these as well. Bulverde is a good example. We're doubling the size of the library. We're not adding any space for collection. It's all about people and programming. It's a place for people to come together and lifelong learning, and sharing and working together. So yes, it would be 2 million more would make a big difference. But that's always true. But the other thing that really worries me is the smaller the project, the higher the dollars per square foot too. So all these, I was trying to keep them as simple as possible. Some of them, like this one's a fairly easy one. We're basically taking out one wall and going straight up. Some of the other shapes are a little harder. But I tried to keep them as clean and simple to get the dollars to go as far as possible. The other thing to think about is having one contractor potentially do multiple buildings. They would still each have their own budget and schedule, so that if something happened in one, it didn't affect the other 2. But you would get some economy and scale, and possibly a project superintendent that, especially if they're grouped close enough to each other, that they could handle more than one. Because that's where a lot of your dollars are. Is that overhead profit is 35 to 40% of that staffing and that, or just running the job. So that's something to think about.
One quick question.
Yes.
We had our initial comments regarding the improvements. You had mentioned that after you did your surveys, that many instances was maximizing the use of the space that they already had, rather than necessarily adding more facility. Did that come up a lot here?
Yes, all of these were taking out shelving and large tables to get more seats in there. And some places we're adding study rooms within that space. In fact, this one we're creating in Moortown, in fact, and I can add these to it, where we have a location where we already identified where 2 study rooms would work.
One other thing. I think you had mentioned some time ago about the furnishings would be different, in that space usage changes continuously, and that there would be a lot of flexibility and mobility of moving furniture in, out, different locations. Yes. To maximize the usage of the space. That's still in,
yes.
In here.
The thing I do not have in the budget is to take any of replace any of the existing shelving with shelving on casters.
We don't have any.
Right now, your shelving is not on casters, and I have not added that because that eats up budget really quick. You can't add casters to existing shelving. The shelving has to be different. Has to be the right
The
kind.
seating, furniture,
But the
tables.
tables and chairs, we're adding new, smaller tables and chairs that are flexible, mobile. Yes. North Caddo, door count is the bottom, ranks 12th. Their circulation ranks 11th. They have more square footage than most of the other branches. However, they also have stairs and elevators, so their square footage, not all of it's efficient. My recommendation for it is, again, it does need to be recarpeted. The staff would really like their staff restroom reoriented, so you're not going into the restroom from the inside the staff lounge. I really looked at kind of shaking that building up a little in that the second floor, we would put 2 new study rooms. We would take out a lot of their shelving because, again, their collection is not being used, but there are people in the building. But their fiction and nonfiction needs to be changing out the tables and chairs on that second floor. So that second floor would have the computers and the adult computers and the adult collection on smaller, and the study rooms and reading area. The first floor would have a teen. They do have an active after-school program. A lot of kids are in there right after school. We in fact saw that while we were there. So we'd have a teen, tween, and children's on that first floor with early literacy. But in the back side, we would also create a multi-purpose room, again, for after-school programming, games, food services, and that. And we would install a ceiling projection. But otherwise, I think the space is there. If we change it up to provide what's needed and how it's being used. And it was already mentioned, it'd be interesting to see what Sunday hours did on this particular facility. But it's another building that would be very, very hard to expand, but I don't see a need to spend money on expanding. So North Shreveport, it's one of those that the collection is used quite a bit. 13% of it is out at one time. Its door counts on a little bit of the low side. Recommendations include maintenance such as changing out the lighting, the vinyl. The exterior sign should be modified, and there's a number of ways we already talked that could happen. You could just paint in the recessed letters so you get some contrast, or smooth it over and do pin-mounted dark letters. And lighting it would help a little as well.
It is easy to pass.
It is easy to pass. There's just no contrast there. It's just, yeah, you don't even see it. Because this particular facility is one that has land and can be expanded, I was suggesting a 1,600 square foot expansion so that we would have a new meeting room, a enlarged children's area, as well as some study rooms and expansion of a teen area. So it would have that decent size expansion, so 1,600. So it and Cedar Grove would be the two with the largest expansions. And then right behind that would be Wallett. It would have 900 square feet expansion. Its door count, 5th, so it has pretty good door count. And I have it expanding towards Logan Street. And it would provide a second meeting room for, again, about 80 in chairs, 100 to 110 in for a reception, and a children's early literacy area. And then the new meeting room would definitely have a ceiling mounted projector, but we could put one in the other meeting room as well.
That was what I was gonna ask.
Yes. All of these, if it's a new space, it has in there, basic technology, not fancy, huge video boards, but basic AV. Any additional, we would want to budget for if we thought it needed. But those are things that can be added easily in the future. To me, it's more important to get the square footage now, and if there's some of those extras down the road, those are easier to add in the future.
For Danielle.
Yes.
One lad, I see the children you have provided an iPad table for 4. Is that iPad table something that's easily converted to something else? Because there's going to be a time when iPads are not a thing.
Right. It just means it has a mount for an iPad.
Okay.
But yes, that raises a very good point. And it wouldn't even have to have that. Some libraries are just doing the iPads in those durable cases that you can check out and take anywhere within the library. Others find it easier to have them anchored to a support on the table. But
Now let me be clear, John and Board, I don't want to take anything away from Marlette. I'm just...
and I have it on some of the others. You could have picked another one.
I'm just clarifying. Okay.
We looking.
We missed it. Marlette is the branch.
All right, then. That comes to okay.
So, and again, Wallette is one that can be a nice, clean expansion. It's easier than some of the others. But the other option on Wallette is, never mind, it doesn't work as well.
That was the expensive option.
Yeah. So, and then the last one is West Street. And the recommendation there was to add about 800 square feet. Again, it's another one that we replace the lighting with LED lighting. The collections would be reduced. We would be creating a tech center. Well, in the tech center, we would be adding 4 more computers and adding a ceiling projector in that tech center. And we would be, so that the square footage would enlarge children's. It'd also create a multi-purpose and study rooms. So the study room would come out of part of children's, but that multi-purpose room would be off of that wing of the library. So not really children's, but it could be created, that could be a teen area. I think we want to look at West Shreve is one of those that might rearrange some of the collection. And I've tried to put money in there when we reduce the collection, that there's money to move the shelving around. So then I just have the summary draft, which is the same. The part-time, right now we have it that the ones in the towns, Blanchard, Higginbotham, Morgansport, and Oil City would each get $90,000, and the ones in the villages would get $45,000. That's just trying to make budgets work. So those are obviously open for input as well on what's the right number. They're a little higher percentage than what was given 20 years ago or whenever for the part-time. So, but it's in that same ballpark.
John, when you think about going to so they apparently you do the one right there. They do.
We're going to talk to the council
Yes.
and let them see what the money that we're going to give, I mean, for them to do. See, their library is in one of the buildings. Right next to in the town, in a building. And they own that, so what we need to do, like he said, we just go out there and talk to them about, they really need some things need to be done out there. But we want the town to know what we're going to do and what they can do. And they may need to move. That's what I'm thinking, but then, like I say, we just gonna go and talk to them.
The Blanchard Library needs some special consideration too.
Well,
Yeah, just go there too.
Blanchard,
Packed like that.
I would love to see Blanchard meet with us and see what we can do. I mean, there are lots of issues with the Blanchard branch. The first thing is that it's taller than it is wider, it seems to me, at times when I walk in there. And the poor staff talk about having access to only one electrical outlet and all kinds of other interesting things that go on there. But again, that's one of those, we could talk to the Blanchard mayor and see what they're willing to do at this time.
My main thought about this, if you look at the Blanchard area, is building up so much, so fast, that little tiny library there is, it needs to be about 3,000 or 4,000 bigger than it is.
You know, it would not hurt my feelings to see something 5,000 or 6,000 square feet there. But then again, we're going to have to talk with Blanchard about that, because at this time, we do not have the funds to go out and build something there. So much as I would like to see something there, that's not part of the budget. In fact, that if we would even discuss that would eat up our budget. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, like you said, it's $90,000, phase one. That's what y'all would do if we need any addition to that, or what? For all three of them, I mean all four of them.
Correct.
So what I'm thinking about is that we will go to the city council. They'll be glad, because I mean, they want something to happen in the library of Greenwood. So we said the food program, they was ready. They met. I met with them. So I think they open to maybe we just need to sit down with them and see, but this, they're gonna see maybe found it was, oh, that's money. But really, maybe we need to look and see, maybe we just need to talk to them and see what do they want.
Yeah.
I do it. Greenwood is building up a lot, but like you said, Blanchard is building up. Maybe we just need to go to them and let them see, and I'm gonna suggest this, but maybe, I know we used to do it a long time ago, but maybe we need to have a meeting. Maybe when our board meeting need to be in Blanchard. Maybe our one board need to be in Greenwood. Just one of them for, you know, and invite them in.
We could all fit in Blanchard.
Y'all can fit in Blanchard. We can,
No,
I think we can fit in Greenwood.
Blanchard's not as big as this one.
Is that small? It's smaller than Greenwood?
That's
It's smaller than Greenwood?
It is, yeah. It's 1,000 square feet. Yeah.
Pardon?
It's 1,000 square feet right now. You can see them on there, the square
Maybe that's
footages are on there,
Greenwood.
their current square
But
footage.
I think if we go to Greenwood, just invite it, you know, we just talk about it.
We're open to all that, and again, those numbers there were Jim's kind of playing around based on what we had done before, and up those numbers. They're not, you know, written in cement,
And we understand.
stone, anything of that nature.
You know, the challenge is to build 5,000 square foot library in any of these would take a fair amount of the budget. It would take 5 of the other, where we're adding 800 to 1,200. So it's a challenge, and you know, having that model of the communities providing the facility and the library operating and staffing, and you guys do the furniture for it too, or you just staff it?
We staff it and do some of the furniture.
And the collection.
And the collection, and the IT.
Right.
Yeah.
But not the physical space. And that's, Oklahoma City does that same thing. And so the challenge is what the communities provide for space aren't necessarily equal to each other. And longer provide the same level of service if you don't have the space. And you can see it probably affects the door count as well.
Question?
Yes.
I obviously have, since you and I discussed some concerns too about the part-time branches, so it seems like we all have something in common here. And I was just curious, I mean, I'm looking at the current square footage and the opening and door counts and so forth, but I'm looking at the 90,000 figures versus half of that, 45,000. Was there any particular formula that was used to come up with those numbers for the part-time branches, or were those numbers just selected, like?
That was a formula based on Mr. Pelton's original subsidies and stuff of that nature, and when he's here, I can have him explain that to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I don't see a major difference in some of them there, where some are getting 90, some are getting half that, and I don't see any major difference in square footage.
No, the door counts are quite different.
Yeah. So
The door
that's something-
counts, some of them
something we
are
can discuss.
5 times bigger. Yeah.
Sure.
We can discuss that.
And, you know, I imagine there will be a village or a town that is not interested in taking advantage of the subsidy, or not all of it. So that pool of money that we're looking at there would be,
Yeah, it's basically,
we can be flexible.
over $500,000. So yeah, if one of the communities or 2 of them didn't have any interest, then
Well,
they
then-
could be reallocated.
Like Ms. Dottie and Mr. Neal, I will also be getting with you to talk about possibly a meeting of some sort, just to hash out so that they can thoroughly understand what's going on, you know, with the figures and so. Ms. Gubey?
Just curious, when you start moving shelving after 20 years, doesn't that usually come into recarpeting?
Not necessarily, they're all carpet squares. And the carpet, yeah, it's, the only time it comes into issue is when, and I've run into a couple of them lately, where they were recarpeted at some point and the library didn't know better than to make them put carpeting under the shelving. So there's no carpeting under the shelving, and now when they want to take out shelving or move it, they can't without recarpeting the whole thing.
I just wondered about moving it after it's been there
It,
for 20 years.
it's not that bad, actually. Plano's done it recently, and you can't tell where
A
they.
lot of it depends on sunshine.
Yeah, it does somewhat on that, and the carpet.
Dim the
that-
lights.
The carpet problem.
Yeah, some carpets, the fibers are dyed a different way, so they don't fade. And you probably have some of both kinds, is my guess.
We have one more.
Only thing I'll say this, when we, Neil, when we was getting ready to put the food program there, and we couldn't do it because we didn't have the adequate bathroom and all, and I went to the city council, before you knew it, 2 on the city council did it for free. So once we go to them, there's somebody there, that man, I mean, they went in and did it free, fixed it up, had it all done. So what I'm saying, once we let them know that, well, we can't afford this, but I guarantee some people in that town will be able to do some things that we need that will not cost. Well, I think that your numbers not, because I can know the place, my place small, but I know it got to be the size of a bathroom. But anyway, I'm thinking, once you bring it to the town, people will donate. And no company, you know.
People will, yeah, rise to the occasion. Libraries, especially in the smaller towns, are near and dear. Yes, I'm doing work with, I was saying, the Tucker Foundation. They support rural libraries in populations under 12,000. So I'm going to all these towns I didn't even know existed in. And some of them, and sometimes it's a library board person that actually, they take turns running the library. There's not even any professional library staff in any of those, because they're not part of the library system. So these are, at least are getting, you know, good staff and real collections. I mean, you should see the quality of some of those collections.
Okay, we're about ready to sum it up. Any final questions?
I have a question. Just clarification on one line. The information here says the library should be expanded with the 900 square feet addition, and then on the map. it says-
The maps are wrong.
Okay.
Yes, I thought I caught them all, but we've been going back and forth trying to get it down.
I heard you say we were wrong for the other one.
Yeah, so the square footages that are on here are the ones that are affecting the dollars. And the sheets that have the cost estimates, they're all tied to this spreadsheet. So they and these agree. So some of the maps, yes, need some work, but thank you. So yeah, these are the ones to pay attention to. And they'll probably change again as we work through this and get your input.
Okay. Well, let me just make a final comment here. It appears that my math is halfway right. We're adding about another 9,200 square feet overall to the library system. Is that about right? We're between 9,000 and 10,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Plus-
it's about 9,000, looks like, yeah.
Right.
Not including what'll go on in the part-time.
9,200 square feet.
9,200 is what I came up
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
That's correct. And that's ambitious, and I think it's well in line with what we're trying to accomplish. As I know you did studies on space utilization before coming up with any recommendations. I promise you this, at the next meeting, everybody will have reviewed this thoroughly, and we'll have probably a lot of questions, and some of them might have to do with budgeting, Sunday hours, and so forth. Give Mr. Tuggle too much to think about some of that. I did notice, in looking at some of this, Mr. Tuggle, that when I looked at staffing versus usage and sizes, that we may want to take a look at some of that, the number of hours per week, some of the full-time, part-time staff.
Oh, trust me, Beyonce's been
Looking at
busy.
that?
She's been very, very busy.
Okay, that's great. Well, without any other questions, and on behalf of the board, let me thank you very much for the very thorough presentation and the homework assignment. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Don't read it at night, it'll put you to sleep, I'm sure. Or if you're having trouble sleeping, it might be good.
I'm going to study all of the maps.
Are these figures confidential or proposed consumption?
This was very helpful, by the way.
Yeah, it keeps it all kind of as a summary.
But all we're going to say is it's first draft.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Okay, excellent first round. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right on, the next item on the agenda is to review the proposed 3D printer use policy. Deon's not here. Joan, will you be presenting that?
I will.
I think everybody has a copy of the policy.
Yeah.
Before we, well, with some news for you, our mobile makerspace arrived last week. It is being wrapped. It should be here, hopefully this week, maybe? By the end of the week. And before we ventured out with a 3D printer, we decided we needed a 3D printer policy. There are some things that you can do with a 3D printer that we didn't want to do, so we decided, we took the advice of the American Library Association. This is their template for a 3D printer policy, and we looked at it, and Deonce and her staff made a few tweaks, and at this time we are fairly sure that this will get us started, and we may have to revisit it. As you know, there's no policy that hadn't met the staff or the patrons that doesn't need tweaking. But I think this will get us started down the road with using our 3D printer at this time. This doesn't take into account any cost or anything of that, because that will later come as we see it. At this time, we're not. Now, we're not anticipating letting the staff go crazy with all of those supplies just yet. We're feeling our way out, having some fun with it. At this time, as you can see, it's fairly simple. It just says it makes 3D printing available during related programs offered at the branches. The service is available for attendees for educational and recreational purposes. And The department, programming outreach department, make offers for use of the branch and programming purposes. It's operated and designated for library staff use only. 3D printer may be used for lawful purposes only. We wanted that's the main sentence we wanted in that policy. So, yes, ma'am.
So it's just for when there's a program that needs 3D printing, so like I can't just go to the library and say, hey, I need to use a 3D printer.
Not at this time.
Okay, all right, good. And what branches?
This is for the mobile, so wherever we take it, we can take it anywhere.
All right. So no gun making, no sword
No
making?
gun making,
Okay.
no knife making, no plastic bullet making,
Right.
none of that stuff.
Quick question.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the actual policy per se, but is there a fee that the users would have to pay for 3D printing?
At this time, since it's just programming, and we're not letting people actually come in and print their own designs and stuff of this nature, no. But if we expanded, as we would with a makerspace, and we have people coming in and doing that, eventually we would have to do a fee.
Okay.
Just like, it'd be like copying and printing, exactly.
Okay.
And it would be about that price, to be honest with you. Now, it's not as expensive. And Shannon, did you stop by the TLC booth?
I did.
Did you see the owl made of the wood?
I did.
They take sawdust now and mix it with the plastic, and you can print wood. You can print graphite.
You
All
can
kinds.
actually print clay.
Clay.
3D
Yes.
Potter Bob that does a 3D clay.
I'm trying to find a way to justify one in my school library. I
I
haven't
understand.
quite yet figured that out.
But as the prices continue to drop, it won't be that bad. Ours wasn't as expensive as the ones from 2 years ago, and I swear I heard a price point on I'm not going to say the brand, but it was a toy maker, toy manufacturer that had one for like $400 or $500 you could buy now. So think of Christmas. There you go. Anyway, we present this policy to you as our first go round, and I promise you we will update it later.
Okay.
That was the last statement.
We do. We review reviews. Any 3D print requests.
Okay, we have a policy before us. Do we have a motion? Motion?
I move that we accept.
Is that you say
I move that we accept the proposed 3D printer use policy.
We have a second? Mr. Morris, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we have a initial 3D policy, printing policy. Next item on the agenda is the reports. Mr. Tuggle would like to hear the director's update first. I think most people have had time possibly to read it, but hit us with the highlights.
I'll hit the high points as you've already witnessed. Spent quite a bit of time with Danelle and Jim Pelton working on this capital and improvements program budget and the presentation for you guys. Also, Samantha and I are finalizing a lot of the stuff that's going on with our May 4th Street Memorial Library Children's Book Festival. It will be held again on Saturday, May 4th on the beautiful Louisiana State University in Shreveport campus, the quad. We invite you all to come out and join us. We've had a initial foundation, library foundation board meeting, and we have been doing some recruitment, and things are coming along quite well. Not as fast as we'd like, but we are making progress. Let's see, we had some green gold, interesting developments here recently. We had to open a brand new checking and savings account. There was some mistake made when the account was switched over from my predecessor's name to my name. And they turned that from a government account into a personal account. So all of a sudden I discovered I had a large bank account in my name that I wasn't aware of, and we wanted to change that immediately. It wasn't as fast as we wanted, but we worked on it, and now we have brand new accounts, so that's nice.
And you didn't skip town.
I didn't skip town. There wasn't enough money to go to the pen for 20 years. I promise you, there's not that much money in that account. I did, Samantha and I, along with fiance went to the Mayor Perkins Future of Shreveport Education Committee meeting recently, and we were talking about, Ms. Bell was there. The main thing they were wanting to do is figure out how to get better internet access to the rural areas and the more poverty-stricken areas, I guess, is the best way to say that in the inner city. And we've got lots of ideas and this, that, and the other, but it'll be interesting to see what develops from that. Let's see what else. I did a couple of presentations at the LLA conference in Baton Rouge recently. You guys would have enjoyed all the jokes we embedded in a model library board meeting that we did. It was lots of fun. And I do believe Ms. Hicks attended our human library collection presentation, and I'm hoping that develops into some very interesting programming for us.
John, may I say something? It was wonderful, and our executive director did an amazing job. And I'm wondering when we're going to have our first human library
Well,
event.
do I hear you volunteering to assist with that?
Absolutely.
There you go. Well,
Samantha
it's
is
sooner than it
giggling behind
was.
you, but yes, absolutely.
There you go. So, and it's nice to know that the DJs here, we're both former radio DJs. I didn't know that. In major market right here. There you go.
It was very interesting. I just
And just
about it.
quickly before I move on, let's take a quick peek at the budget ending in February 28th, 2019. You'll see that we are on course to get all of our revenues, 16% this time of the year. And as far as expenditures go, yes, that number is a little large at 18%, but if you will look in the capital improvement and equipment section, under books and library materials, that's 20%. Our acquisitions department has been busy, and they have been purchasing online databases a little early, and that's why that number's a little high. We went ahead and paid for those up front like we normally do. So.
May I say one other thing,
Yes,
John? Lynda.com is fabulous. Thank you for that. And I don't know if y'all have a new database that we have, but it's Lynda, LYNDA.com. You can learn to do anything from Lynda. Anything.
Well, almost anything.
It's
If
how I
you
learned
learn how to be a
Instagram.
brain surgeon on Lynda.com, Neil, I'm still not going to trust you to operate. Sorry.
But it's how I learned Instagram. It's how I've learned how to do like
Some
spreadsheets
coding?
and stuff. Some coding, yeah. It's
Coding's
great.
fun. Yeah. And you'll be happy to know, Shannon, that we are looking at, I think, it's either a 3 or 4 year contract on it this time. Of course, that's a Susan problem. I'll let her
Well, we could only
sign a 1 year contract, but we have.
The law will not let us have a 3 year unless we have one sentence added, and that's a non-appropriation sentence. And Lynda.com would not cooperate with us and add that sentence. So we had to sign for 1 year, and they also jacked their rates up really high. So they haven't been the best to work with.
But we'll work it. We're not going to let it go away. And that's my report, sir.
Thank you.
So did it just give us the dates for the festival?
May 4th,
May 4th.
Saturday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Are you going to be giving the reports for DIC?
I will change my hats and become Deonce, and then change my hat again and become Jenny.
Oh, okay.
Just, we have. I had a chance to read it. I don't know if everybody else did. But why don't you just hit the high points of that report?
I'm planning on just letting you know that as far as the public services, we were, of the 39 top performing libraries, we were named #1 for the BStack Winter Reading Challenge.
Right.
Some of you may be familiar with billionaire Mark Cuban. Yeah, somebody lives over in his town. Anyway, they were, that was his challenge, and we are very happy to be accepting a $1,000 award for that.
Great.
Our programming and outreach librarian, Lauren Metzger, did a grant called Thinking Money for Kids for a traveling exhibition, and we won. So we will be one of many libraries that will be displaying that exhibition. Let me read that. It's a 1,000 square foot exhibition that explores financial literacy topics in an engaging manner for youth ages 7 through 11 and their parents. We're happy to have that. One other thing is we are currently participating in Read Around the World. The goal is for children to read books that broaden their knowledge of other places and different cultures. And the Shreveport Dairy Queen location on Mansfield Road and the Sonic Drive-In in Vivian are partnering with us to donate free ice cream as an incentive. So if you know children and they're not reading around the world, you have to get them to your local public library.
And John, Samantha did a great article on that somebody shared in my Facebook page, but it was very, very good. So kudos to Samantha.
Okay, and John, she said 1 of 39.
Oh.
She didn't say first, she said 1 of 39. Free Memorial, named 1 of 39.
Name one, the top 39.
Say which one?
There you go.
We were 20.
I thought we were number 1. I'm broken hearted now.
Top 25. That's good.
I thought.
John, can I have one more thing on public
Sure.
services? I have attended a couple of programs in the last month or so, and just attending just as a patron. We are killing the game in programming at the Shreveport Memorial Library. We have some amazing things. I have learned to do an art technique that I would have probably paid $100 somewhere to learn to do, with supplies and everything included. And it's amazing to me that we have this level of programming. So who's ever doing your program planning and acquiring the people is doing a fabulous job.
Very good. It's good to hear. We've been pushing programming. It's one of the goals that came out of the strategic planning session, early literacy along with lifelong learning. I will brag a little bit and tell you at last week's Rotary meeting I attended, I had 2 different individuals come up and say the same identical thing you did. Of course, one of them was about the string puppets we brought in from Dallas, which was wonderful. I have some photos I need to show you of that. And again, what was it, the baking? Somebody was bragging about our baking program. I wasn't even aware of that one.
I mean, I have to work for a living, so it gets in the way of me attending all of them that I'd like to attend. But I mean, I've thoroughly done it. The caliber is just extremely high.
We are having fun with it, I have to tell you. And yes, ma'am.
Would this bookmobile come under this report?
The bookmobile or the makerspace?
Okay. Bookmobile. Don't we have a bookmobile?
Yeah.
Okay,
We got 2 bookmobiles.
Yes, that's what I want to say something about bookmobile.
Oh, well, have at it. This is
Okay,
right
then
one.
I want to say something that, I don't know if y'all got me. During the summer, like for instance, we have a very active camp at my church. You're aware because I invite y'all all the time to come to. Is it possible that the bookmobile can visit the camps at least 1 day a week? And the reason I'm saying this, you know, the career festival that I do at the church, we have to take them to the library. And I would pause and get to the library so they get their reports together. You know, it'd be detailed. I'm inviting all y'all to the fair this year, the festival, so you can see what I'm talking about. They have to research, they have to type up their work. I mean, I'm saying, but even just to go to the, like we go to West Shreveport Library, and it's no more than 60 kids in the camp. And it's from the little ones up to the top, okay? And they have to run their pictures out. Is it possible that the bookmobile come once a week to the church? I mean, I guarantee you will get them, we will use it. Is it possible? They do what it's
Well, the demand is kind of high, but we will get you in touch with Linda and see if we can't get it scheduled for
Please
you.
do it. Okay. And it's not about, she on top of.
Our marketing person.
But it's not but one, I mean, like, the camp is on 6 weeks. And I will get the dates, that way it will help us make doing that project.
I'm not going to make any promises, but we can definitely do it.
Make a promise, because I'm getting very
You got me on camera. I'm not going to make a promise.
But if they call, then they can set it.
What I need to call to get us on schedule.
Just call.
Call.
Like, okay, call time church, time is over, time church, time I leave. Okay, and I'm gonna get the dates ready by Monday, you're gonna have the dates. But we're not gonna, it can be a Friday, it doesn't matter, don't take time. Oh, that's right. Yeah, but no, it's certainly not.
Right.
So I can call them, yeah, okay. You got it? Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you so much. That's what I thought.
You're welcome.
You can do it for 6 weeks, for a week, we won't bother you anymore.
And if you don't, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I got her on tape saying if we do it, she won't bother me anymore. I got it on tape. There you go.
Look at you, okay.
Anyway, that concludes our public services.
Okay.
Unless you have a
I
question.
have a quick question.
Okay.
On public services. Third item from the bottom, third paragraph from the bottom. Can the board attend this particular viewing?
Yes, sir. It's
open to the
Robinson
public?
Film Center. We're just participating in it. We're not
It
actually.
just sounds interesting as all heck.
It is. I do believe you can get the film through any number of formats and various places. I don't know if it's on Netflix or Amazon
I haven't
Prime.
seen it.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
But it's been out for a while now, and it's starting an interesting discussion. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Very interesting discussion, and
Okay.
yeah, it's a movie.
You're gonna do Miss Paxton's too?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, as far as support services go, there have been several HR morale booster programs lately. The Brown Bag with Dr. Maggio, I think is how you pronounce his name, local chiropractor and radio personality. Talked to our staff here in this room about increasing energy levels, and we had bowling night out, which I had a lot of fun at. You know, it's just the way it works.
I mean, I think board should have been invited to bowling night, I'm just saying.
I thought you were. If you're not, well, we can have another bowling night.
Did you just point to Kathy again?
Mm-hmm.
Everything don't you care.
No, Kathy, that was not anything to do with Kathy. Trust me, Kathy did not get thrown under the bus for this one. But you are all invited to our barbecue, staff training and barbecue that will be coming up in June. Let's see, what else we got going on? Access services, the cataloging department. Belle back there, say hi, Belle. Belle's been busy, 13,000 items taken care of in the last 2 months. Our e-branch manager, you may know him, is Caleb. Caleb has had his role expanded. We call him now a digital services librarian. And I've stuck the phrase in there, other duties as assigned, and I'm having lots of fun. And let's see, our IT department has been very, very busy. The main thing they're doing at this point is moving all of our emails to the cloud. All of your board emails were moved yesterday, and I promise you it will be a lot easier to access them. And when Kathy wants to send you board reports through email, very easy to get them on your phone, I promise you. She will show you how. Yes?
Miss Beverly, I've been getting my holes, so I'm so happy.
Woohoo!
And Caleb also killing the game. His daily Facebook posts, like he's got a following. They are hilarious, and they get attention from the library.
And I don't necessarily follow him on Facebook, but I keep up with him on Twitter and Instagram, and it's just
He and I have a gift war going on,
Yeah.
so he's doing it.
He is a remarkable individual. And last but not least, our marketing person wants me to show you, I hope I can find it, this video of our TV commercial.
Shreve Memorial Library, your place to dream of endless possibilities and set your imagination free. Discover new and interesting things and learn to do just about anything, from reading to cooking, crafting, and gaming. With 21 library branches, mobile library service, and 24/7 digital e-branch access, it's easy to dream, discover, do. Shreve Memorial Library and you.
There you go.
So when does that start airing? That is airing now. It airs on Fox 33, and it will continue to air. We'll have a commercial with them for the next 10 months. We'll update the commercial periodically, but right now that's the commercial that's airing.
And will y'all let us know when y'all are gonna appear on TV for an interview or something, because
Yes, I will try my best to let you know. Sometimes it's last minute.
She will send that out on your board emails.
that's not,
I don't think it's selling something, Joe.
And that wraps up our support services program.
Okay, Ms. Susan Waterbury is here.
Oh, we got a question.
Oh, we have a question. Mr. Loris?
Yeah, if I was finding my, information, where can I go, I saw, pool up there, where?
That was Hamilton South Caddo's team time. They had a team game day. So they had a pool table, they had Xbox, PlayStation, lots of board games.
That's not every day?
It's, I think they do it on the third or fourth Friday or Wednesday. Yeah, they do it pretty much.
You pool shark?
Well, no, not shark, but I like to play.
Excuse me, Mr.
Okay,
Tuggle.
so this is information, financial services.
Excuse me, Mr. Tuggle, may I say something? May I address the board?
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know that we have a game day at Moortown. You can come in any day as long as the meeting room is available, and we will hook you up. So please come on through. We have giant bowling pins, we have air hockey, we got PS4. Come on out and have some fun with us.
There you go.
Thank you. Financial services.
Oh, well, that, we gotta let Susan make that. I'm stopping there.
I'm getting ahead of myself?
Yes.
Oh.
I got. Mr. Tebby, we're gonna let,
We're ready now?
we're ready.
Okay, thank you, Hawkins. Susan, please.
The biggest thing I wanted to talk to you all about was, I was reading the Shreveport Times and they mentioned an article where some money was given by the Louisiana Public Service Commission to like the city of Shreveport and BIPC and some other big entities. And it said it was for energy efficiency grants. And I'm like, what? So I got with the Public Service Commission and I got with SWEPCO and I found out that they have these massive grants. And they had just done, awarded 2.1 million. But they had another cycle that was coming. They were fixing to award 1.8 million. So we did what I call a Hail Mary pass and scramble and through all of our full-time branches and asked for almost $615,000 to replace LED lighting inside all of our libraries and in the parking lots. Now that doesn't mean we'll get it. Most likely we would if we're lucky. We should see maybe $200,000 or $300,000 if they follow the form that they've used for some of the previous awards. But now that more governmental entities are hearing about this, you know, we're in more competition. So if we get $100,000 or $200,000, we'll be real fortunate and we can replace some of our lighting, and that might give us a few more dollars in maybe the second phase to spend somewhere else. So whatever I can grab from this, we will grab. We just delivered the mayor's vehicle. There's pictures of Samantha has been working hard on the design, and that's what the design is going to look like. Unfortunately, we don't have the vehicle out front for you to look at today. We try to get it in on time. And I was going to pass a note to you. I was up at Bull City in Orangeport last week doing a safety check and safety training, and I pulled up at Morgansport, parked the vehicle, got out. The mayor was on the front lawn area walking around, walked right up and started talking. He had these red survey flags. He was surveying because he wants to put in a big parking lot at Morgansport. He says he desperately needs. And so he wanted the board and everybody to know that one of his main wishes, if he were to get some money, would be to put in a parking lot at Morgansport. So I told him I would pass his message on. But it was really nice meeting with him. He's newly elected and he's energetic. He's a contractor, so he wants to fix things up and make it better. That's all I have.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, so
You have a question?
yeah, I was just going to make, have a question about your report, but I was thinking that you didn't. Do you know how someone will know about that? I think it's remarkable that you applied for this. Thank you.
I don't know.
I hope we get it.
I hope we get it too. I feel confident we get something. The last go round, it took them
about 14 months, but that was the first time that they had ever done it in North Louisiana. It almost always happens down South Louisiana, and they get all the money. Well, now Foster Campbell's section of the state, he's got these pools of money that SWEPCO has contributed to. So we could find out in a year, or if they're a little faster, we could find out in 3 or 4 or 6 months. But I'll have to make some phone calls and keep asking them, hey, when do you think you might decide, you know? So I'm not sure how it's going to impact our first phase or our second phase, but hopefully right in the middle there.
If you ever go to a movie at the Robinson, they have a trailer before that shows that SWEPCO gave a bunch of money, that money to the Strand to redo their lighting.
Yes.
That's cool.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
Everyone, we did, we had received some of that money.
Yes, they did.
Hector School received some of that money, Bolger Community College received some.
I read that.
Gravel did too, so I'm sure they will give the library some.
I read that.
And I didn't know anything about it until they told us to come to the press conference.
And
You
the
just
same
said,
thing with the city of Shreveport.
They gave
None of
millions.
our partners said anything
That's
to us to make us aware that that.
I said, we can get it. Foster Campbell's done a great job, helping us. And, yeah.
Yeah.
That's all we've done.
Anybody left or right? That's about it. Okay, the last item on the agenda is miscellaneous items. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, board members, for being so interactive today and so expressive of your comments. And thank you, Danelle, for your fine report. Just a reminder, everybody should have received this memo that I'm holding up. And it's for all of us. It comes from Mr. John Tuggle. Don't forget your annual ethics training. Don't forget to complete your Tier 2.1 financial disclosure statement. I think that's by May 15th, stated. And we will let everybody know in advance when we're going to have Part 2 of the harassment training. The last item is make sure that you have the Shreve Memorial Library Board of Control update.
Comment on what you just said.
Yes, sir.
If you have a look at the ethics board website, fine is $100 a day.
Yes, and if you ever have to go before the ethics board, it will likely cost you a lot more. So don't play around with it. They are not one to listen to too many excuses for not submitting your required paperwork on time. Now, one more thing. We just finished
This about the ethics thing.
Oh, okay.
They sent me a letter at the election. I got a letter, and I guess they told me they charged, I miscalculated $2.45. As of that, the 15 days, they're going to charge me $45 a day if I did not get that $2.45 rectified on my thing. So they mean business. $2.45.
Are you talking about that Tier 2.1?
No, this was for my election. It's all the same thing. They charge you for anything. I know somebody behind the ethics on $7,000 right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. You know those.
I went before the board.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's they could be tough. I was fined $5,000, paid the $5,000 fine, which they deposited into the state treasury, which it took me 2 years to get back from an attorney after they realized that they'd made a mistake. So they can be tough. They can be tough. So we've had people on this board. I've had friends of mine that have had asked for sympathy and understanding for being late, and they said, that's really nice. We understand, but no thank you, pay up. They mean business. I guess is what we're all trying to say. They mean business. And they have so many people to deal with. That's why they act the way they do, or they're as strict as they are by enforcing the policies. Okay, I'm going to get to these last two yet. Kathy, you got your feet and your hand up, so go ahead.
I don't know if y'all are aware, but Shannon Hicks is going to be the parliamentarian for the Louisiana Library Association.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, more
Try to
business.
represent our board well.
Okay, we're getting close now. Just make sure that you have the Shreve Memorial Library Board of Control updates on offices, and also the board and committee members for 2019. That was included in your package. That being said, and it being 4:15, the chair would like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Neil, second. Dolores, all in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Before you get it, let me say one thing. I know the meeting's over, but I want to say this.